We were to move those kids in 10 to 14 days off our facility into the hands of the sponsor, which we now know are criminals and traffickers and members of transnational criminal organizations.
From Fox News, Dr. Phil tells View hosts about horrific fates for some migrant children at southern border. Quote, "We are using American tax dollars to ship children into known prostitution and sweatshops," Dr. Phil said. Because I know there's going to be a lot of people who are exposed to this for the first time, and they're going to say, this is crazy. This stuff's not happening. Well, take it from Dr. Phil on The View when he said American tax dollars are shipping children into prostitution. Children.
Yeah, so how does that happen? I think people just don't understand how that happens. Well, right now in this program that's called the Unaccompanied Children Program, this is part of HHS. Now,
are you talking about the refugee resettlement program?
Yes.
Yes. I actually mention that very frequently on the show because that's the means with which the Democrats are trying to transport illegal immigrants into different states, specifically purple states, in order to turn them blue, trying to get a Democrat majority so they can have essentially what would turn into a one-party rule. It is, so please go on. But the program is called the Refugee Resettlement Program. It's run by the HHS, so please, by all means.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Bobby Kennedy has something to say about all this. I can assure you.
It's really, really exciting.
Yes, his team is all over this. They are not into child trafficking, I can assure you. So things are going to change. But in the Office of Refugee Resettlement, they have a program called the Unaccompanied Children Program. And these are these minors who are coming alone. And so again, Tim, to your point, people are like, oh, other people have separated kids from their parents. Well, this program is a family separation program. The children are being lured here and their families are letting them come here. So they're separating them from their families in home country, turning children over to smugglers, and then giving them to the United States government. So yes, when they show up at the border, they will have a phone number on their arm. They could have it pinned in their clothes. They could have a piece of paper you may have seen.
They hang them around their necks.
Yeah, hang them around their necks that give them a number that they're supposed to call of the sponsor. This is their U.S. point of contact. So our fine Border Patrol agents, they take down this information, and then they hand them over to HHS, Office of Refugee Resettlement, Unaccompanied Children Program. And that was me. So I was sitting on with some really other great people at the Pomona Fairplex. And we take that phone number, that U.S. point of contact that the child gave to Border Patrol, that they got from smuggler en route. And we pick up the phone and use that as the sponsor and say, hey, Tim, you expecting anybody? And the goal was we were to move those kids in 10 to 14 days off our facility into the hands of the sponsor, which we now know are criminals and traffickers and members of transnational criminal organizations. And tax dollars pay for it.
That's right.
They not only pay for the transportation from the border to us, they then pay for the transportation from our facility to the airport closest to where you would be living. And we'd say, hey, Tim, yeah, okay, you're getting these two kids. Well, meet us at baggage claim in the Houston airport, and we're going to deliver the kids to you.
I mean, this is February of 2024. This is February of this year. Dr. Phil was on The View saying this. This is mainstream reporting.
Yes.
The United States government is facilitating child sex trafficking.
Yes.
You mentioned Bobby Kennedy, and it's so incredibly good that it's so incredibly important that the Senate confirm him.
Yes.
Because we need someone that's going to actually make significant change. And not to harp on the news of last week, but it's incredibly good that Donald Trump has won. Because if Kamala Harris had won, this would it would all be business as usual. She was the border czar for 4 years, allowing these programs to go on, putting no effort into changing anything, putting no effort into stopping this. To think that this is something that, again, just like Tim says, Dr. Phil had spoken about it on The View, as mainstream as you can get. And Dr. Phil has up until, I'm not sure now how he's looked at, but I know up until at least recently, he was looked at by people like Oprah and by The View, the people on The View, as someone you can trust, as someone that is acceptable to listen to. If Dr. Phil says it, it's okay to believe. Dr. Phil wasn't someone that was to be tossed aside and disregarded just as oh, he's a MAGA guy, so we can ignore him.
Right.
And he's making these statements. He's bringing this to light.
Well, they all did that with Donald Trump. I mean, they loved Donald Trump
100%.
before. They were all in his pocket. I mean,
100%.
they were buddies.
100%.
I mean, all of them, Oprah, they all loved Trump before he went down the escalator and said he was going to run for president.
Well,
I mean, these people.
It's crazier than that. They still loved him then.
I know.
He went on The View. He went on, I think, like Jimmy Fallon's show until they realized he was a serious contender.
Right. Yeah.
And he was talking about shutting down a lot of what they were doing. Then all of a sudden he was Hitler.
Oh, yeah. They went at him, right?
Yeah, and so I'm incredibly thankful that Trump won, that he's putting people in place or he's trying to put people in place that make the establishment upset because they don't have allegiance to the establishment. You don't have to work, like the fact that the establishment hates the idea of Tulsi Gabbard being the DNI,
She's
that's good.
awesome.
That's
She's
good.
awesome.
That's something I want.
Yes.
I want the people that are going to be heads of these bureaus. I want them to make the people that are in the bureau say, I need to find a new job because I can't stay here. And that's something that you see on X right now a lot. People are like, if Matt Gaetz is the AG, we're going to quit working for the DOJ. If Tulsi Gabbard is the DNI, we're going to quit working for whatever organization.
Tulsi and Robert are great examples of, they were Democrats. I mean,
Right.
they opened their eyes. They actually, Robert's an interesting guy. I got to say that, his father and his uncle, there was an idea of an assassination and attack on those two men who were exposing secret societies.
Yeah.
And, what he did as a young man was he did a deep dive into the CIA and learned everything he could about him. He was so upset about his father and his uncle dying like that. He wanted to find out. I mean, he is a very, very extremely important person that researched and did what he did to find out what the truth was. The CIA has been being used for very nefarious things in this country, going back to Bush 1, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand that, or completely.
But it's very important that these guys came in and they realized that they've got to jump sides. They got to get on the good side. Let's get on the good side now. The people, the American people. Let's save this country.
I want those people to go to jail. What? The people that are the bad guys.
Well, I'm not talking about. I'm talking about the American people.
Oh, yes.
They discovered that they've got to start fighting for the American people. Michael Flynn started local action when he got a pardon of innocence, and that's the drive. The American people did something remarkable. What they did to win this, they're the reason, and they should be damn proud of themselves because they listened, they stood up, they did their part, they did their dually citizenship. They took that vote and they saved this country. The American people did that.
Look, I have been very, very skeptical of the ability of the American people to see through what has been put in front of them, because the narrative that comes from the State Department comes from from the establishment,
The mainstream media.
mainstream media. It's all fed to them. And the first thing that the government does when they want to defend themselves against accusations from American citizens is to start discrediting them, start calling them names, start saying they're Russian assets like they do to Tulsi Gabbard. Say that they're somehow they've broken the law, or they're some kind of degenerate like they're doing to Matt Gaetz. All of these tactics are how they protect themselves. Discredit the person that's making the accusation.
Throw a lie out.
Yeah, and it
throw a softball out.
And then because of the media that is totally in the pocket of the intelligence community and the State Department, because access is what the media wants. They want, and people think that it's money. People like to talk about, they're getting paid, and the money is secondary. It's access to power, because that's the point of money. Money is, you want money so that way you can make things happen in the real world. Well, if you can make a phone call and call someone in a position of power or position of authority and say, can you do this favor for me? Money becomes secondary because you have access to the power just by making a phone call. And that's not traceable like money is. If you give someone gifts, if you're putting gold bars in your pocket like what's his name from Jersey, Menendez from Jersey, that can be found. But if you can just say, hey, can you do me a favor? I've got this problem. Can you make this problem go away?
You don't even ask for a favor. They just
Fair
make
enough.
a phone call and say, you know what's been bothering me today? This guy. Oh, won't someone rid me of this priest?
Yeah.
Have a nice day. And then someone does, and he says, I never said anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you can do that kind of thing, then the money doesn't matter. So the people in the media, your Mika Brzezinskis, your Joe Scarboroughs, your people that are going on Morning Joe, like people like from the Council on Foreign Relations and people at those organizations.
How many MSNBC personalities were former intelligence?
Oh yeah.
All the time. That's part of the reason why I used to watch Morning Joe, because I was
who owns these networks. You just look at their backgrounds. I mean, Susan Rice was ABC, I think. Susan Rice was my brother, the national security advisor, who shook his hand.
Yeah.
And was like, and then stabbed him in the back. So, these people own ABC. I mean, this is their agenda. You got to use, that's a part of the communist plan, though, is media. You've got to have media. There's certain things that the communists do to take over a country. I mean, my brother can talk, both of them can talk about taking a country over. They've done it. This country should never have been in the wars that they were in. And they say that, they took countries over.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. So subscribe and come hang out.